What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Form Live podcast. We unfortunately missed last week. I had some Wi-Fi
Unfortunate.
issues. Two weeks ago, you saw Road Tristan with the webcam and everything. The show worked out fine, but then my next Airbnb just had the worst Wi-Fi ever, and my computer wasn't working. And it was just like a whole mess. So we're back here tonight. Me and Matt get to
They
catch
needed
up a
they
little
needed
bit.
some time.
Yeah, yeah, they needed to let
They needed some
everything
time to recharge,
let everything melt into their brains. We're just covering so
digest.
much information. Yeah, exactly. So but we're happy to be back. We're going to talk a
Absolutely.
little bit about the obviously we had Waco and Austin since the last show, so we're going to talk a little bit about those. We're going to maybe cover a little bit of the Go Throw tournament, which was before then, which they played in a ton of mud. So we're going to cover a little bit of some strategies to handle the mud. And then we're going to go into some questions. As usual, if you guys have any questions, drop them down in the chat and we'd be happy to answer any of those. So, Mac, oh, and we lost Mac a little bit already. That's unfortunate. So, Waco and Austin, we had two back-to-back weekends of kind of shorter courses, and kind of the stuff I want to talk about a little bit of the trend of. I feel like both Waco and Austin had very low ceiling shots relative to open courses. So okay, we got Mac back.
Sorry about that.
Oh, just a second. There we
Oh,
go. Now we got Mac back.
yeah.
um,
Internet randomly dropped.
yeah,
We love that.
love that. I was just talking about Waco and Austin. We have
Hmm.
obviously Waco, known to be kind of a shorter course, and then
Yeah.
we have Sprinkle Valley, which is also a shorter course. Very few distance drivers on Sprinkle Valley, especially. Waco obviously has a couple in the open,
Hmm.
but Sprinkle Valley has almost no distance drivers. Like you could pretty easily get through the whole course without throwing a distance driver at all. Potentially not even like a fairway driver. I played with Yona Heinonen
Yeah.
second round, and he just threw rock threes on every single hole. It was
It's a good
wild.
strategy.
Yeah, it's a great strategy. I Next year I will be taking up the same strategy and just throwing
Yeah.
mids instead of trying to throw all these different discs. Just take the mids out and
Hmm.
throw everything else out of the bag. Um,
Yeah.
I'm 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 curious to hear your thoughts on this, or like if you have any outside opinions, because obviously you weren't at the tournament, but you played Sprinkle before, I think.
Yeah. Sprinkle is an interesting one where I have actually played Sprinkle. So
Okay.
and I love Sprinkle. It's my second favorite course.
Okay.
Only taken over by Cactus Rock. So
Okay. Where's
I hope to
Cactus
target.
Rock? I've never even
It's
heard of
in
Cactus Rock.
Tuscaloosa. It's
Okay.
the Paul Macbeth Dylan Cease course that they have there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Is that the
So that
kind of newish one?
yes. Yeah, that's the new one.
Okay.
And it's incredible. They just need to figure out how to actually have an event there.
Yeah.
Um but yeah,
Can you still hear me?
I can hear you. You're you're frozen on my end,
Oh my
which is why
gosh,
it's a
what
little
is going on?
okay. You're also frozen on the screen.
I
On the
know.
stream, so I'll keep
No,
talking while
what
you
the
try
heck?
and figure that
Okay,
out.
please.
Yeah, so I have played Sprinkle. I love Sprinkle. I feel like it's not that dissimilar of golf to Waco, in terms of in the woods. The weird thing is, love Sprinkle, don't like Waco. Now I haven't played the Beast, but
Yeah.
from what I have gathered from people that have and from watching coverage, it's just not an interesting course to me. It's
Okay.
not my thing. I feel like its main protection is the wind. And I feel like I mean we saw it on the last day. It wasn't that windy and it got destroyed by the field. Um, and then the woods I feel like get a little bit fluky at times. And so I feel like when you add those two things together, like yeah, there's the entertainment factor of everyone's in close contention. I get it. Uh, but in terms of the actual course, I don't know that I like much of it outside of 17-18. Um, Tristan drops. Oh, there he is. But yeah, I don't know how much I like of it outside of 17 and 18. Obviously,
Yeah,
those are two good course holes. It's a great finishing stretch, but you got to have 16 other good holes. Not to say there aren't any, but
totally.
um, I don't know. I feel like a lot of it's not that memorable. Like hole two, I remember hole one because there was always issues of people like rolling away into OB, but then
Yeah,
I have to
but
like
then they
rack
took
my
that away.
brain.
They
Yeah,
they they even took that away. You can't even roll OB on that hole anymore.
yeah. So I have to like rack my brain to figure out what hole two is every year. I'm like, oh yeah, it's the one that's by the river.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I don't know. It's not my favorite tour stop. I know it's a little bit p- polarizing, I guess, but
Well, I think it's just nostalgic. Like, it's
yeah,
always awesome. Every year, like going to practice there for the first time, super cool because it's a
yeah,
tournament everybody has watched that, can remember Big Germ winning it and like or three-peating or whatever he did at that course.
yeah,
And so it's very nostalgic, but yes, now with the field being so good, I mean like Jake Mon, who finished 20th in the event, tied what Paul's 18 under round is. Like
hmm,
Jake is an incredible player, but
right,
that just goes to show how good the field is now because he literally shot the same score and it was the
yeah,
lowest scoring day in Disc Golf Pro Tour history by the
right.
field. Like
I think he said he missed two birdie putts that round as well.
I believe it. Like it's one of those courses. Like if you're on, and he's a woods guy, like if you're on, you're just gonna completely shred. Like I was in 90th place, playing
Hmm.
terrible, shot 7 down, and damn
Yeah.
near moved down spots. Like it's
Yeah.
like
You
that's
shot a
crazy
good round on the worst day possible to shoot
on
a
the
good
worst day
round.
possible. Yeah, it was like literally felt it. The 7 down borderline felt worse than like the one over I shot the day before in the wind. It's
Yeah.
like it's crazy. Um, but kind of something I want to talk about between the two courses. I feel like especially the wooded stretch of Waco, but part of the open section, and then all of Sprinkle Valley. I feel
Mhm.
like all of the holes have this like almost like TP Woods effect where the higher you go up, the tighter the gap goes. It's not just like
Yeah.
straight trees all the way up like you get at some other
Hmm.
places. It's like okay, it incentivizes you to throw it low, or at least makes you think you should throw it low, but you actually can throw it higher
Yeah.
than you think you'd be able to. And it brings in this like interesting concept because I think like Waco, I guess interesting concept disc selection wise, because Waco has a lot of short holes that I feel like people end up throwing mid range or even fairway driver on because you can the lower you throw it, the more gap room you have.
Right.
And so like in practice, I was throwing just a bunch of these putter shots, like high in the gap and like turning them. And then I like as I was playing more practice, I was like, man, I really like I like started hitting a couple twigs, and I'm like, man, I really need to start throwing mid range, but this is a 230-foot dead straight
Yeah.
hole
It's
that
like why
kind
risk
of
it?
has a wide gap. Yeah, it's just like this weird thing in my brain. So,
Yeah.
you know, like I guess it's just odd how obviously if you go out into the field to practice, you have all this ceiling room to work with.
Hmm.
And I feel like all off season I wasn't necessarily thinking about the height in which I was throwing my discs. And Vista del Camino, which is my home course, also besides a few holes, you don't really
Yeah.
got to worry about how high you're throwing it. You can throw it as high as you want. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
Uh, and so now, like today, I went to go to the field and I'm throwing like trying to throw everything like there's like a light pole in the distance, and I'm like, okay,
Uh-huh.
throw every. It has to stay below that light pole line. And so I guess kind of a question I have off of this is if you like have anything that when you go to the field, you have any like tricks or things that you're like trying to work on specifically to help translate to the course. If you're like practicing for a specific tournament, like are you just like picking something in the distance? And I know we've talked about this a little bit of like PVC pipes
Yeah.
or soccer goals or that kind of thing. But do you have anything that like helps you envision or picture the course that maybe
Hmm.
you're trying to practice for while you're in the field?
Interesting. I don't know that I've ever been like, I have this big tournament coming up. I need to practice this one specific shot.
Hmm.
Um, but something that I do. It just in general for I kind of try and keep my practice sessions pretty general to like hit everything so that I'm
Yeah.
prepared for anything at any point. That's the mentality I go through. So one thing I practice for like keeping things low is just that. I will intentionally practice throwing line drives or skipping it into a basket I set up. So I think I've talked about it before, but something I always do when I'm practicing accuracy in the field is I set up a basket and then I will put cones 25 feet out from the basket.
Hmm.
Um, and then I'll set up stations from starting at like 225 or whatever, and then go to like 350, and then set stuff up in the middle, and I'll get, let's say, 15 drivers or something. I'll go out to 300. And I say,
Yeah.
all right, all of these are going to be low backhand, like slight skip shots or something like that.
Okay.
And they only count if I deem it met those criteria, right? So if I
Yeah.
accidentally sky one, even if it pins it or goes in, doesn't count, right?
Yeah.
So I will do that and then keep my stats for that in a like Excel spreadsheet. And when I do it, I've been bad about it in recent years, but when I was doing this a lot, I had a spreadsheet where I could see like my actual
Your
progression on
progression.
these
Interesting.
shots and
Yeah.
be like, okay, when I first did this, I was 6 for 15 or whatever.
Yeah.
Now I'm 10 for 15 and I'm like, I just did 12 for 15, right? And
Yeah.
so I do this with like every shot that you can do. So if it's even if it's like a low righty skip shot, I'll do like a mid righty shot that kind of
Okay.
skips in, or just like flies in, or do the same thing for an Anheuser, and then I do it for forehands and stuff too. So
Yeah.
I don't practice in the field specifically for course, if that makes sense, but I do
Uh-huh.
practice the shots for I think every course. There hasn't been a shot on a course I've never practiced before. Let me put it
Yeah.
that way.
Fair. Fair. Okay. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I definitely and maybe it's different for like tour golf because it, I guess it kind of pertains both ways, especially if you're someone that plays in the same area often enough. But I feel like tour golf, we've played the same courses for so long that like I know like okay, like D Glow hole one, for example, like I
Yeah.
know exactly what that shot is. And
Hmm.
so like I can go to the field and throw that shot. And maybe that's not a great example because that's probably not one where I'm like going and grinding a
Right.
500-foot forehand hyzer downhill in the field
Yeah.
over and over again. But you get my point. Like, I guess like there's some shots or like Sprinkle Valley where most of the shots are kind of low ceiling ish. They're almost all generally pretty straight mid range to putter shots that just have to slightly drift at the end one way or another. And
Yeah.
so I think like I naturally the week before the tournament am going to go out and throw more of those mid-range putter shots that are going and drifting kind of straightish than
Yeah.
I would maybe in my normal practice session. Because obviously
Mhm.
in the off season, that's a shot that I'm generally pretty good at, just like a kind of straight shot with a slow disc. And so it's not something where I'm like, okay, I just have to grind this all off season to work on
Yeah.
this. But when it comes to
Right.
like tournament week, then I'll start, trying to practice some more things like that. Or, if it's something I'm bad at, then and then I realize it in the tournament, then I'll probably start
Yeah.
practicing it a little bit more also.
One thing as a side note that's so funny to me is hearing everyone say that it's like just mids and putters at Sprinkle Valley. And I'm thinking back in my round, like, yeah, I threw mids and stuff, but I don't think I threw a putter off a single tee
Really
at Sprinkle. Yeah, I threw a lot of like understable fairway drivers. And
interesting.
I think that's because my comfortable like stock throw is like 70% power, which I think is
Okay.
a little lower than most people.
Yeah.
And I've even had people comment in tournaments like, I didn't think you threw very far, and then like you actually like got into one once, and it surprised me because
Yeah.
I operate like significantly lower than my threshold, I guess.
Interesting.
Yeah, so like hole, what is it, hole five? No, hole four. It's after the pushing hyzer through the gap
Yeah.
at Sprinkle.
Okay.
Like I used to throw a stalker there.
The
Now,
little turnover shot or
no, it's
the
before the par four in through the woods that has like the OB on the right side.
oh, you're just saying like the kind of the flex shot or the
Yeah, I'll throw like a slight hyzer flip to turn and then come back.
okay, interesting. That one I could understand a fairway driver a little
Yeah.
bit because it definitely is like that's one of the few that's like a longer mid shot.
Yeah.
But yeah, especially if you like a 60% power,
Hmm.
which I don't. I'm more I
No.
like an 85. Like I was
Really?
almost throwing
Okay.
my proxy on that hole. Um, and what is my camera doing? It's
I
bugging
don't
out
know.
like crazy. But yeah, so it is just kind of interesting, like the perspective, because there are probably some other players who played that event that didn't think it was all mids and putters. But like I played
Yeah.
all mids and putters, and the guys I was staying with threw all mids and putters too. So that
Yeah.
was just like the perception of it that I got.
Yeah, but I think that's one reason that I really like that course is because yeah, it is different than a lot of tour stops and it's shorter in terms of the shots you have to throw off the tee, but I think
Yeah,
that adds for a lot of variety in what you can do as a player, right? So
totally.
you can go mid putter, you could go fairway driver. I mean, you're in Texas, a lot of times you can go over the top, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's hole 15, the par four where you throw out you have like two really tight gaps left or right, and
Yep.
then it's like the skip shot. I was really surprised how many people I saw going with the skip shot route because
Okay.
for me, when I played that hole, it was no brainer. I went over the top every time.
Yeah.
And I think I birdied it every time I played it. So like it was really interesting to me to see how many people were enticed into throwing the skip shot.
Yeah. And the I think the wind makes a difference too on that because obviously like if
Yeah.
there's a ton of wind, over the top gets pretty sketchy pretty quick.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know how windy it was. I heard it was pretty windy the second day.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on with my camera. We might have to
um,
give
oh,
it a
I'll
sec.
restart it.
I'm gonna cut off. I'm just gonna send us to a different screen here for a second while I try to get this figured out.
Okay, we will be right back.
Okay, we are back. We apologize for the technical difficulties, but to be completely transparent, we will be stopping the stream if we have another one because it's just getting to be too much.
We are on a timer,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
we're gonna try and pump out as much good content as we can.
exactly, exactly.
Um, on to finish Sprinkle Valley, I had two questions.
Okay.
One, obviously we're gonna talk about 18, but
Yep.
I want to ask you what you thought about the horns from the drop zone on 17.
Um, cool, but I don't know, not my style.
Cool, but why?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Another like for a regular course, for a practice round, for like any other time,
yeah.
totally cool with it. But pro tour tournament, maybe not the time.
I feel like you could have gotten the exact same experience by just putting the antler in front of the wall and not have it impede the putt at all.
Yeah, or on top of the basket or something.
Yeah, that'd be kind of sick. So
That actually
someone's
kind of
disc could
sick.
just get
Yeah.
skewered by.
Oh. Gosh,
That would
that'd
be
be
cool.
brutal. Your favorite disc right into an antler.
Yeah. One thing I will say about that hole I didn't like that they changed was that they added the wall, which I thought was fine, but then they took out the railroad ties on the backside. So you had
Okay.
a pretty significant chance of like standing up and rolling out.
Hmm.
Or I watched Sarah Hokum get like a sneaky little backdoor roll in behind the wall with a
Interesting.
forehand.
I didn't
Yeah.
even take note of that. I guess in my mind I have envisioned the railroad ties going all the way around, but
Yeah.
I guess you're right that there wasn't.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
an interesting one.
Yeah.
Um, and then obviously we can talk about 18 briefly because
Yeah.
hot button issue.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on it?
I love the hole. I think it's a great hole.
Thank you.
Like I don't think it needs to change at all. I think maybe I mean I could see them doing like a hazard or maybe changing the drop zone rules to where instead of it being 4 times throwing from the short
Yeah.
side or I'd even say there's the like the stairs going up the short side like
Yeah.
put a little drop zone on top of there or something where you
That's
go
exactly
up
what I
there
think.
and then throw across. But I mean, to be fair, it's an 100 from inbounds to inbounds on that last shot. It's 150 feet.
Yeah.
Like everybody, I mean, that's a shot everybody should be able to execute. They shouldn't
Yeah.
have to make that easier. And if you're there, pretty wide gap too. I
Yeah.
think it's fairly punishing because if you're short and off to the side, becomes a very tricky shot. But you always have the opportunity or the option to just pitch up closer to the
For
bank,
sure.
and then go from there. And I feel like the issue is everybody trying to park the hole instead
Yeah.
of just throwing it long. Because me and Gossage were joking how like if I miss that island one time, I'm throwing a distance driver sky
Yeah.
Annie over the basket into the fly
Just
mart
make
just to
sure
like
you
make
touch.
sure
Yeah.
I cross. Like just have a no doubter full power shot into the stance. Like
A hundred
totally good
percent.
with it.
I mean, I'd probably throw a tomahawk just as hard as I could through the gap,
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
don't care if it stays on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just
Which
play something
you
that dumps off.
there is an argument that that's kind of bad hole design if that's your best shot. I think where I would rather see the hole is what you said. I would like to see a drop zone, not on the island. I don't like putting drop zones. I don't know
Me
why we
neither.
do it so much,
Yep.
but we should have move the drop zone to on top of the stairs. Give them it's like 150 feet or something to the island, but still nervy in a pressure situation, especially if it's windy.
Yeah.
And then you're still going to get what you wanted with like those death putts
Yep.
because now everyone's going to be pushing the backside of the island anyway.
Yeah.
And you're not going to have the perfectly lined up like center putt. They're going to be kind of scrambled a little bit. Some people might even short it trying to pin it. So,
Yep.
you know, you won't see 12s, I guess, but I mean, you
Yeah.
might.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's just like, yeah, it's just, I think that you don't even have to add in the drop zone for just people should be playing it longer.
Yeah.
Like Calvin hit or Kristen hit short like 4 times in a
Yeah.
row. Like she's the best player in the world. She
Grab a
should be able to
brace, throw a
adjust.
forehand as hard as you
Yeah,
can,
or
and
just
just
like
cross.
it's a yeah, play it like you have 40 feet long in the basket. Like it's
Yeah.
not like there's 20 feet long and you have to pin it. Like
Hmm.
there's 40 feet long in the basket. Like you can throw a 200-foot shot from there and be well inbound still. And
We
so
saw Holland Hanley do something similar. She said, "Screw it, I'm just crossing the green," and she went to the drop zone and laid up the putt.
yeah,
And like, yeah, she took an 8, but she gained half a stroke on the field
yeah,
by doing that.
yeah,
So
yeah, exactly. And I think yeah, you should be able to throw on a 150-foot putter or mid-range shot, no matter the division. Like if you're on the pro tour, that should be a shot that can be executed. I don't think it's the tournament's fault for
yeah,
creating this like crazy bad hole. Like maybe the
yeah,
tee could be different, maybe like the OB and the fairway could be different. Like I'm all for those changes. I don't think the green is the issue,
right.
on the whole necessarily.
Yeah, I think that was a mentality thing getting the players, and it's an interesting topic. What do you when a when a hole scares you like that? Do you have any strategies to deal with it, like mental strategies?
Um, well, one is just like every hole has somewhere safe to throw it. Like
Mhm.
unless it's USDGC, like like
Yeah.
you do have somewhere safe to throw it somewhere. And obviously 18 at Sprinkle has almost a little bit of USDGC type like rulings. But unless you're at USDGC, I think there's always somewhere safe to go.
Mhm.
And so, you know, I think one, just knowing where that safe play is, and then what's your most confident shot to get there. Not
Yeah.
necessarily what is the best shot, but like you said, like Kristen should have just grabbed a forehand grace and just threw it over the green kind of thing. Like that
Yeah.
might have been her best play. Like especially, it's easy in tournament play to maybe get the yips of a certain shot. Like all of a sudden, 100-foot putter shot might not be comfortable. Like
Yeah.
especially after you throw two of them out of bounds. So just it doesn't have to be the best shot for the hole. Just throw your most confident shot for
Absolutely.
the situation. And so if that's grabbing a forehand on a backhand hole, grab the forehand. It's going to
Right.
save you strokes. Like just because it's not a forehand hole, like you got to always play. And this kind of goes for being comfortable or uncomfortable. Just
Mhm.
play your best shot for every single hole. Like not
Yeah.
not what the hole calls for.
I was actually listening to Tour Life today, and Yuli was kind of talking about this a little bit, where he said that 2 years ago he was like on the whole "I'm the most unlucky disc golfer in the world" train, and he was he had to throw things high. He was saying he had to throw things higher into gaps to get the same distance because he didn't throw as hard.
Yep.
And he realized like I'm just going to throw it 40 feet shorter and not challenge the ceiling. And then guess what? I
Yeah.
don't get unlucky anymore.
Yeah.
That's him. I think he's a fantastic example of someone who's playing to his game.
Playing within
And
himself.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
not letting other people dictate what he's doing anymore, which is why he's doing so well,
Yeah.
given all of his injuries,
He's playing
his
great. Like,
veteran status, his age on tour. Like, I mean, Yuli's not old by any means,
no.
but he's
I
not
mean,
like
compared to all the
22.
17-year-olds, like, yeah,
Right.
he's on the older end. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, so I mean, he's a prime example of playing to his game, and I think more people should look at that. I think it's hard though because most players' games look the same, which is they just
Yeah.
throw stupid far.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's like, yeah, Yuli's a incredible example, really, for this because he really does just like play where he can play it on the course, doesn't try to do anything that he can't do. And, bottom line, especially when you're playing at the highest level, like executing is executing. Like, it doesn't matter
Yeah,
if you're trying to throw the 500-foot shot down the tunnel if you miss the gap. Like, it's
yeah,
better to throw the 250-foot shot down the tunnel and hit the gap every single time.
right.
So there's definitely something to be said for just playing your own game.
Um, and then to stick on Open Austin for one last question, I just
Yes.
remembered this, and I was talking to some friends about this. Did you watch coverage coming down the stretch at all, or watch the card?
Not really. No.
Okay, so 14 at what's the name of the course?
Harvey Penick or
Harvey Penick, yeah.
yeah.
Um, I always want to say a different one for that for some reason, but hole 14, Gannon throws out, doesn't get fully out of the gap. He's kind of pinched off against a tree
Okay.
that's in front to the right of him.
Okay.
And
Which
that
hole? 14?
14 is a par four. You kind of like, I think it's
Yeah,
14.
yeah, yeah.
He pitched a
13
forehand,
maybe even.
maybe. The green
Yeah.
has like a small bunker and then
Yep.
an OB around it.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's 13.
Okay, 13. But he doesn't get quite out. He has this tree right here, and the shot calls for kind of a flexy forehand that
Yeah.
like hits and sticks. He decides to go, and he's pinched off by the left trees as well. So he decides to go straddle out to the left of the tree. So he's still kind of
Okay.
got this tree in his head, and kind of you can see it in his shot because he doesn't fully commit to the force over because he also is pinched by the left side. And so he ends up sawing it off and going OB right. When if you look on video, you can see he could have easily straddled out to the right side. Yeah, you'd have the tree in your face, but you can trust like, hey, my arm's out here, it's not going to hit this
Yeah.
tree. And now you have the perfect angle for that exact same shot he wanted to throw. And so
Interesting.
where I'm getting at with this is, in my opinion, that's the exact reason that you have a caddy on the course.
Okay.
That is the exact reason that you have someone that you trust. And Gannon's actually a rare case where he does have someone that he trusts
Yeah.
with him week in and week out.
Yeah.
But it's the exact reason why you have someone that's looking at these things and you're comfortable trusting to know, like, he's not going to lead me astray, and that they can say, hey, have you looked at this option?
Yeah.
Like, why are you doing what you're doing? Because it's really easy to get tunnel visioned.
Totally.
And so
Yeah, like an unbiased opinion,
yeah,
really. Yeah, like because like that situation with Gannon, as the player, it's really easy to be like oh, like I can't see this way, like I can at least see this, like if I straddle out left, so I'm gonna throw this shot. But in reality, like someone looking behind could maybe have a different opinion, especially if it's someone you trust. Being
yeah,
like, no, just go out to the right. You won't, like you said, you won't see where you're going, and you'll actually just be able to throw the shot and have a better angle on top of
yeah,
that.
yeah. So I guess my overall question is, where do you see the role of caddies in disc golf being? And like, should more players have caddies right now? Or not just someone that holds your bag, right?
Yeah.
Like an actual caddy.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, I think it does have to be someone that you trust, like
Yeah,
completely. And I've had it's hard to find the perfect mix of everything because I've had people that caddy for me and it sometimes they say all the right things, I trust them completely, their decision making is good, they help me out a lot with the shots, but then maybe like I'm a walk fast down the fairway kind of guy,
yeah,
maybe they don't keep up, and so then I turn around and every time I'm like ready to throw or say something, they're 50 feet behind me. So like that's an issue in it of itself, because then you can have the opposite where you have someone that keeps up with you just fine,
yeah,
but it just doesn't fit with you, like what you're thinking, or isn't someone you trust. And so I think there's a weird balance there, and
yeah.
especially because I don't think there's really any player that can afford to be paying a caddy
Sure.
like a true caddy every week.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
obviously Gannon has like Matt Schlabach who caddies for him all the time. I don't know what their relationship is. I don't know. Like Matt is one of his sponsors, so I don't
yeah.
know if he's like being paid in any way, or like how that's working. If that's
Right.
just a friend that happens to be working out well as a caddy. But in terms of actually paying for someone who would actually caddy as like a golfer has a caddy, where that's
Yeah,
what they do. They specialize in being a caddy. I think it's tough. I don't think anyone can pay for that right now.
yeah,
And until people can truly be paying their caddies, I think it's going to be really hard to find people who are smart and actually want to do like actually look at it as a job,
yeah.
and not just like oh sick, like I get to carry your bag and like watch people
Mhm.
play.
It's a bit of a privilege right now to have a good caddy on tour. I can think of only a few off the top of my head that have it, and
Yep.
they're not paying it. So like Kristen has Silver,
Yeah.
who carries her bag pretty much every time he can,
Yep.
and obviously they trust each other. I mean, they're married.
Yeah.
And then you have like Proctor will go caddy for Evelina every once in a while. They
Yep.
seem to be good and friendly, and I mean, I would trust Proctor. He has a
Yeah.
good head on him. So, and then obviously, you know, Gannon has Matt. I'm sure he does say stuff to him because from what
Yeah.
I think Matt is actually a pretty
He's a
pretty
good
decent
MP40
MPO player.
player.
Oh, he's
MP40.
MP40.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Yeah, so it's definitely a privilege. There's probably like 5 to 10 people total that could pay someone,
Yeah,
but
the one I can think of that actually is paid is Brad, Yuli's caddy.
yeah, yeah,
Like Brad gets paid, and yeah, Yuli, yeah, he like gave Brad a car. Yuli gave Brad a car that Brad drives around, and then Brad
yeah,
drives Yuli from like course to course, or like whatever. Not from
right.
tournament to tournament, but he drives the car from tournament to tournament, and then Yuli has a car every
Hmm.
time he's there, um, and they're actually like a good combo. Like that, Brad is a true caddy. Like
Right.
and Brad is probably the only one in disc golf right now that
Yeah.
is actually a caddy, and he like specializes in that, and he knows Yuli's game maybe better than Yuli does, honestly. As much as Yuli probably doesn't want to admit that, I think
Yeah.
Brad
Yeah.
probably does know Yuli's game better than Yuli, and Brad's super smart. Used to be an incredible player, like was like rivaling Ken Climo, but then
Right.
obviously he's older. He's in his 60s and he can't play the way that he used to. Still nasty good. Doesn't throw
Hmm.
very far, but nasty good. But he has the mind still that obviously can compete at a high level. So he fits the caddy role perfectly.
Yeah, I think one problem is that the skill pool of people that actually qualify to be that level of a caddy is so small that most of them are probably already on tour.
Yeah, exactly.
So like you got to pick old timers or something, kind of like you're saying with Brad, um, or you know, find some guy that's just you trust and he's pretty good at disc golf and hope you like him.
Yeah,
And he
yeah.
has all your quirks that you like. I don't know. I'm with you on the walking slow thing. I hate that.
Oh
I
yeah,
can't
I know.
I can't stand it. I could
Yeah,
love my caddy to death, and if they're walking slow down the fairway, it agitates me to no end.
yeah, yeah. It's just or like it could be the same to opposite. Like they're walking too fast for you, or I don't know. There's just so many little like quirky things that when you're by yourself carrying your own bag, you like just naturally do. You don't even have to think about, and that's the last thing you want by having a
Yeah,
caddy is to then have to think about something extra that's not involved. Like
right.
you're trying with the caddy, you're trying to get more thinking power about the disc golf, not
Yeah,
not subtracting your own thinking power and losing it.
100%.
You have
We
any
have belabored
questions?
we have belabored the Open at Austin and Waco point
Yes.
now. So want to move into some user questions, or you want to
Yeah.
move into one of mine?
Okay. We could. I think we either do a couple user questions or one of your questions.
Let's do some user questions. How about
Okay.
that?
Done
We'll
deal.
save some of mine.
Okay.
Um, okay. Here's a question: should my front foot rotate on the heel or toe for a backhand?
I think heel. I think that's pretty wide consensus.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't think people should think about it as much as they probably do. It's one of those things. Like I say, like doesn't. I mean, it's more of a tell that you're doing other things wrong than it is like do this and it'll fix everything
Hmm.
type fixes. I think you should probably be rotating on the heel, but I see a lot of people like trying to rotate on their heel and then they rotate their heel early and it's out
Yeah.
of time or they're doing all these other things wrong. They're not even using their legs and their heels rotating.
Yeah.
What's your take on that? Do you feel like it's something that like should be focused on or have any tricks to focus on that better?
I think in general I would teach to rotate on the heel.
Hmm.
I've actually tried to fix some people who rotate on the toe because I think in general it kind of promotes you just kind of spinning instead of like driving.
Yep.
But I guess as a counterpoint to both of us, because I do agree with your assessment. Paul Macbeth spins on the toe, rotates on his toe,
All for all
and
shots.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. And then
Interesting.
the another one I noticed was you may know him from back in the day, Cam Colglazer
Yeah.
rotates on his toe.
Interesting.
Very athletic people. Cam, if you know Cam at all
Oh yeah.
personally,
I
is
played
just a
with
freak.
Cam. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just a freak athlete. Like he's just
Yeah.
good at everything. And
Totally.
and I think Paul's kind of same thing. Obviously, come from baseball,
Yep.
and both on the toe. So I don't really know what to do with that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like one of those things like we've had so many people on the show or like of forms that we're analyzing. It's like if you do anything for long enough, you can still get good at it. Like
Yeah.
and everyone has their own like quirks or things that they do well. One thing I'd say is I feel like generally toe rotation is a sign for me that your base isn't wide enough. Like you're not
Okay.
planting far enough away. Because obviously, like
Yeah.
if your foot is directly underneath you, pretty hard to rotate on your heel. Like you kind of
Right.
have to rotate on your toe. And so I think if you're bracing properly and you're getting that plant foot far enough in front of you, then you're naturally going to rotate on the heel because it's actually going to be hard to rotate on the toe.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a little bit hard for me to understand how they're bracing as well as they do when they're on their toe like that. But
Yeah,
I mean, they do it.
yeah,
So, but
yeah.
yeah, for the majority of people, if you're rotating on your toe, you probably have some problem elsewhere.
Totally agree.
I would think at least.
Yep.
Okay, let's see. This one's pretty general. just tips on gaining speed.
Okay. I think overall concept, and then I'll let you kind of go on a little bit, but I think it's dependent on how far you're throwing right now. Because I think the way that you're going to go from 450 to 550 is completely different than the way you're going to go from 250 to 350.
Yeah.
Would you
Yeah.
agree?
I definitely agree. If you're only maxing out like 300, 350, something like that, then your tip on gaining speed is quite simply get better form.
Yeah.
Because I have not met many people who, they have perfect form and they're only throwing 350. And
Yeah.
I hear it a lot. I hear it a lot on social media where it's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
my form's good. I can only throw 370 or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, sounds like you could use some form work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially if you're like some 19-year-old, some
Yeah.
six
If you
foot
have
something
like
19-year-old.
any muscle mass at all,
Right.
then like you can't have perfect form and throw that far.
Yeah. So I think unless you're in the like I'm stuck at 450 range, I think once you hit that, you can delve into you might need to work on some speed training
Yeah.
or
Or get in the
some
gym
some
or
basic gym movements
yeah.
and like strengthening your core, strengthening your lats, something like that, getting some lower body training in,
Yeah.
you know, that then you can talk about that. In general, get a form review.
Yeah. Absolutely. Totally agree.
um, Elbow dipping, how to avoid it.
Oof, that's a big question. There's a lot
it's
that
it's always the short ones.
there's a lot that goes into that.
Let's
I
talk about what he means by elbow dipping.
okay. So elbow dipping is basically on your peak reach back. You're going to be on some sort of probably for this. You're going to be reaching back higher, and then when you go to pull through, basically we're talking about elbow being below the wrist. So it's
Yeah,
not necessarily like the elbow actually going down for most people. It's I've seen mostly it's like the wrist being too high.
yeah,
Obviously you can get both, but basically wrist or disc above elbow is what elbow dipping is.
yeah. Um, I see this a lot with AMs, the
Yeah.
elbow dipping, and I think it's a lot of times from a poor swing plane. Uh,
Mhm.
One problem I see a lot in form reviews that I do is you guys do some wacky stuff with how you pull through. I
Yeah.
mean, you'll have guys starting up here, they'll come down, they'll come up and down again, like real stuff I've seen. And
Yeah.
it's like, how is this natural to you? What are you
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah. Totally.
um, in general, let's try and keep it as straight as possible, guys.
Yeah.
Like, keep it a flat plane. A sheet of paper. Imagine a big sheet of paper going through your body. That's what I want you to swing through on.
Yeah.
Because the more you start doing this or like down to up and all that, that's just more ways you can mess up.
Totally. One thing I want to say with this, like, I think the most general fix you can have, not that general fixes are good, but most people that I see that elbow dip have more of an issue of how they're getting to their reach back than they are having an issue of how they're actually pulling through. Most
Yeah.
people who have a big elbow dip are going very much low to high on their reach back, which then as you go to pull through, the momentum is going to continue up with the disc,
Hmm.
creating that elbow dip. So I'd say if you want to try to minimize the elbow dip, try starting with having your starting position higher. So just having the disc start higher initially and try to go slightly high to low on the reach back and then low to high on the pull through. And that's naturally going to get your elbow going up as opposed to going down.
Yeah.
Would you agree on
This
that?
reminds, I would agree with that in
Yeah.
general. Like we said, general fixes aren't always the best, but general advice is probably fine.
Yeah.
um, this reminds me of I guess counterpoint from a video that I saw from Yuli, who we talked about earlier.
Okay.
I remember him talking about upshots, and his advice was to keep your elbow below your wrist when you're throwing like touchy approaches and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that advice in particular?
Yeah. So, main symptom of elbow dip is nose up. because basically
Hmm.
you come through here and then the disc has to kind of swoop out to get out of it, and you get that nose up effect. So I think for trying to throw nose up, you want some sort of elbow dip. And when you're
Yeah.
throwing it at lower speeds, it is more controllable than when
Yeah.
you're trying to throw at high speeds. I still think that elbow up is easier to control. It's just going to be more consistent overall. But if you naturally, or if you're trying to throw nose up, if you're throwing into a slight headwind or you're trying to control the pace of the disc going into the green, then I think throwing with a slight elbow dip is
Yeah.
actually useful. But absolutely would not recommend trying to do that for a full throw.
Totally agree with you. I fully agree with your assessment. I was giving you a little
Oh,
testing your knowledge a little
all
bit.
right. Max quiz time.
Yeah, exactly. Um, let's do like one or two more, I think.
Yeah, one more. Yeah, this will be the
Okay.
last one.
Let's see. We'll go with this. I go through weird phases where I putt with too much hyzer. How do you train yourself to putt flatter?
Okay.
Do you even need to putt flatter?
That's a
Let's
good
start with that.
question. I think yes and no. I think generally a flatter putt is going to be better in wind, and probably have a little bit less reaction if you like miss it. Like one of the main things of a
Yeah,
hyzer putt, like it comes
stand
in
up
so
and roll.
steep, it just stands up and yeah, can take off. Uh, I think one issue that people have on their putt is they they bring it down, and when they're bringing the disc back up, they almost have so you get to that peak bottom position, and if your first move from here is towards the basket, it's actually hard, or it's naturally going to come out on hyzer because
Yeah,
most people are bringing the disc down fairly low on
yeah,
their takeaway on a putt. So then when you're bringing it back up, you're going to have to do so much wrist correction to get the disc flat, and then it's going to be hard. You're probably going to wobble it. So I'd say, and you see a lot of the pros do it. I think Isaac Robinson is probably the best example of anybody on this. Is he like brings it down low, and then I'm going to over exaggerate, but then he almost like brings his hand up high and then puts straight. Or
yeah,
Adam Hammes is another one who does it a lot, where he brings it very low, and then his first move from the bottom position is straight up and then forward.
yeah,
And I think that can naturally help get you on a flatter angle or even on a little bit of anhyzer. Um, and so I think people probably, this is more of like a push putt issue, I would assume. I think
yeah.
most people who spin putt naturally are a little bit higher.
Right.
So they're going to be flat ish. But I do see a lot of beginners who are like push putting, and they just can't get it flat at all. They're like super steep hyzer over and over again. So try to have
Yeah.
that first move from the bottom be up a little bit and then forward.
Yeah, that is a very common hitch amongst people, good putters too.
Yeah.
Um, I personally don't try to have too many hitches in my putting form.
Yeah.
I kind of have a lower spin putt. I have almost a sort of like not exactly Gannon. Gannon's like fully rotated to the side,
Yeah.
but I keep the same Gannon mentality where I'm going back hip towards basket. And
Yep.
so for me, I like to putt generally pretty flat. And so the way I do that is my starting position is actually sort of an anhyzer with my wrist because
Okay.
I know that when I go to release, I'm getting that little bit of finger pop on the bet or on the disc,
Yeah.
and it's gonna pop it from anhyzer to flat.
Yep.
And so someone that does this kind of the opposite way is Paul Macbeth, where he actually has a pretty flat release, but he gets that little bit of pop from his fingers at the end that puts him on that like typical Paul slight hyzer angle, which he's still relatively flat anyway. So like it's
Yeah.
very slight hyzer.
Yeah, and we're talking about release angle out of the hand because you do have people
Yeah.
like Gannon or most pros putt with a more overstable putter. So
Yeah.
it's coming out of their hand flat and then kind of doing that little bit of dive to the basket on, once you
Yeah.
start getting to 30 feet or longer, you start seeing it hyzer in pretty steeply, but they're actually releasing it on a flatter line.
Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, like everything else, do what's good for you. Good,
Yep.
do whatever goes in the basket the most for your putt. So
Agreed.
if you if you make a lot of putts and you're a steep hyzer putter, I don't care.
Stick with
Like
it. Stick
stick
with
with
it.
it. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly. Maybe
Yeah.
you spit through the chains a little more often, whatever, but at least you're hitting the chains more often.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. All right. I think we're gonna wrap this one up. A little bit of a rough episode back.
That's
few
okay.
technical difficulties, but
That was our
let us
punishment
know.
for taking a week off.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So as usual, let us know if you have any questions that you would like us to answer. You can message us on Instagram. You can drop them in the comments. We'd be happy to answer them. And thank you, Mac. And we
Thank you,
will
Tristan.
see you guys next week.
Later, guys.
See ya.